Good evening. My name is Jamie Mulfinger, and I am the music director here at Union Presbyterian Church. And before I begin with introductions, if you feel like where you are sitting and where other people are sitting is not comfortable tonight, now's the time to make adjustments. We will have the piano and the keys on the screen above you, so that will be an added bonus to being able to see the fingers as he's playing. And I think people were all gravitating that direction for that reason. Okay, I am delighted to start off this Masterworks series featuring pianist Oliver Bjorkman. He has been with us in our congregation over the years, and we've enjoyed his piano. Before we begin, I would like to remind you that flash photography is distracting to other listeners as well as the performer, so please refrain from doing so when the music is playing. Also, this is a great time to check your cell phones and make sure the sound is turned off for the duration of the concert. There will be an intermission, and during that time, if you need the restrooms, there are women's and men's straight back where you came in on each side, as well as over here out these side doors to the far end. We also ask that per county's mask restrictions that all audience members wear masks for this concert. Thank you so much. And at this time, we will begin our first piece with a toccata and fugue in E minor by Johann Sebastian Bach. A toccata indicates polyphonic writing, a musical style derived from the Renaissance era and continued in the Baroque era. When you have simultaneous melodies interacting with each other rather than a chord structure, we call it polyphonic. This toccata begins with a somber four-note repetitive motive that takes place in the left hand. Although the toccata is in a minor key, it ends with a major finale, and we call that the Picardy third, for you who like to know music technicalities. The second movement has delicate embellishments in the right hand over a lower melody spread out over several bar lines. And then there's a third movement, an adagio, and it has even more improvisational sound with half-step sighs as it moves through harmonic patterns. There's a dotted rhythm in the bass to listen for that arrives, again, in the tonic major. The fourth movement is a fugue. The fugue is almost identical to another composer's work, incidentally, Benedetto Marcello, and there's some mystery surrounding who copied who. In this fugue, the persistent fast notes continue over a slower counter melody with lots of rests in the slow-moving left-hand melody. It is said that Bach's congregation would sometimes get so carried away listening to him improvise on the organ that they would forget all about the homily. That did not make the minister happy, but the improvisational quality of Bach's music was what definitely dazzles and influences us back in all the way from Mozart and Beethoven to our jazz composers today. Bach lived devoted to God and to his family, and he didn't have a perfect life either. He bore the heartache of much disease and death in the family with a high mortality rate when 10 of his 20 children did not live past childhood. It made me think this week how blessed we are, and if God can be glorified in Bach's life, even through all of that tragedy, then today we have no excuse. So we're going to begin with hearing Toccata and Fugue in E minor by Bach. Next, we will hear an etude by Cécile Chaminade, who was born in Paris in 1857 and is one of the few prolific women composers of the late 1800s who wrote over 400 compositions. She wrote not only for the violin, flute, and voice, but also the piano. And the word etude means musical study. Just 30 years earlier than Chaminade, Chopin masterfully created piano etudes, one for each major and minor key on the piano. Chaminade also did the same and displays technical capacities of the piano in each of these etudes. And like Chopin, Chaminade had a wonderful gift for writing beautiful melodies. Her pieces show influences from the composing styles of both Liszt and Chopin. The French title of this etude is called Autumn, and that's the French word for peaceful. So this is a peaceful rhapsody, if you will. It was a huge success in her American tour, and she sold 8,000 copies of this piece alone in 1913. There is a nostalgic quality to the melody that comes in, and it is quite smooth and calming. This is sharply contrasted with a middle section that is fast and furious, focusing on the technical challenges with a melody that weaves through boldly and heroically, very much like the skilled performer that is willing to take up the challenge of learning this piece. This piece has a ternary form, which is A-B-A, returning back to the original melody, and that is like Chopin's etudes as well. And this piece ends with a satisfying and poetically delicate set of arpeggios that go up the keyboard. So enjoy. This is Etude by Cécile Chaminade, Autumn. Next, we will hear a prelude in G minor by Rachmaninoff. Rachmaninoff's music is both complex in its meaning and performance. He was an incredible pianist with huge hands that could span well over an octave. His compositions served his performance career, unlike Chopin's, who's rarely ever performed his own works beyond the comfort and familiarity of his acquaintances and friends. Rachmaninoff admired Chopin greatly, and there are many parallels between this prelude in G minor and the finale of Chopin's first ballad in G minor, both of which Oliver has learned and performed. Rachmaninoff wrote two groups of these etudes, and they're called etudes tableaux, and they are meant to be musical paintings or visual representations of things. But he did not give too much away about his meaning behind the music. He said, quote, "I do not believe in the artist disclosing too much of his images. Let them paint for themselves what I utmost suggest," end quote. However, we do know that one etude was about the sea and the seagull, and the final etude just after this one was about Little Red Riding Hood and the wolf. And this music would scare anybody. At the very end, there's 3 big wolf bites. Well, this G minor etude is not quite so scary. The key signatures in the Romantic era, I should mention, are very meaningful and give hints about what the emotions should be referring to. The key of G minor represents discontent and uneasiness and worry. The Romantic composers were in agreement about this, and there's a lot written if you wanted to research it. There is something else very unique about certain pieces in the Romantic era, and it's called a triadic strike, and the G minor prelude here is one of those. There is a triadic strike that's repeated, and it's a rhythmic motif, an idea fixe, if you will, and that refers to like a central idea that keeps popping in and out of the music. Many composers have opened with this. For instance, Beethoven's Fifth Symphony in the beginning. Bum, 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 right? That motif represents fate. Rhythm is also very important and crucial in a triadic strike because it's calling for your attention. It's active. Rossini used one in his William Tell Overture in that opening that sounds like the galloping horse. Rachmaninoff was also deeply religious, and he said, quote, "A composer's music should reflect the spirit of the country he was born in, his love, his faith, and his thoughts." This G minor etude opening is a march indicating a procession that reveals power of people and their unity. Other triadic strikes are found in famous marches like the Carnival of the Animals by Saint-Saëns, the Military March by Schubert, and Pomp and Circumstances March by Elgar. It is like a knock at the door that we cannot ignore, and the fact that Rachmaninoff spent his life and musical works very concerned with and referencing death and resurrection is also crucial to understanding how he uses this in his music. The triadic strike is a symbolism to Rachmaninoff in his belief in the Trinity, God's power over life and death, the determination to get through this life of suffering, the impending doom of God's judgment in our world, and the victory and the power that God has over all creation. There's so much in Rachmaninoff's music, and that is what makes it so powerful. So we will hear from Oliver now. Music has such a wonderful way of expressing a gamut of human emotions, much better than words can sometimes. Foster children experience an array of emotions that are often very complex and require patience and support to work through. And at this time, we will be hearing from a representative from Help One Child organization who will be able to share how their ministry supports families through the foster care efforts and how they are sensitive to the needs of those foster kids.
Hello, I'm Joanne Morris. My husband Mark and I started the nonprofit Help One Child 27 years ago. Our mission is to provide support and services to foster parents and foster children to help them thrive. We have a very small staff committed to making this happen, and our offices are right here at Union Presbyterian Church. The benefit tonight that Oliver and Jamie and James are helping us with will make it possible for Help One Child to fund our family camp for foster children. You will hear more about that camp in a few minutes, but first I want you to meet Kelly Ginto. There she is. Kelly will give you a quick picture of what a foster child goes through and how a faithful foster parent, with the support of others, can help a child grow into a loving, productive adult. Kelly now owns and manages stay-at-home senior care in Redwood City, and she manages a husband and children at the same time. Come on up, Kelly, and let our audience hear your story.
Hello, I'm Kelly Ginto. I'm a former foster youth. Can you guys hear me? Yeah? Oh. Is that better? Okay. Hi, I'm Kelly Ginto. I'm a former foster youth. I was brought into foster care at the age of 10. A neighbor named Kim, who had lived next door to my family a couple years earlier, wanted to become my foster parent. While she was in the process of getting licensed, I stayed in a facility called the Receiving Home. Once her and her husband were licensed, I was able to move in with them. The transition was not an easy one. In the beginning, it was uncomfortable for me. Strange to have roles and strange to have someone to take care of me. In response to this, I began to display negative behaviors, such as running away and acting out. Now when I reflect back on this, hold on. Okay, now when I reflect back on this, I understand I was just used to chaos and having only myself to rely on. I did not know how to transition into a normal family routine. I didn't know how to be a child. Eventually, I came to find that I had a, oh my God, so. Okay. Eventually, I came to find out that I had a great team of social workers, case managers, and a foster mom that would continuously try to help me. But first, I had to move several times because I was always running away. I was placed in a level 12 group home, and the agreement was once I completed the program, I was able to go back to my foster mom, Kim. I completed that program in 9 months, and I was offered different kinds of therapy and support services. At age 18, I aged out of foster care with a baby, my foster mom, and a social worker. Even though I was a mom myself, they supported me in whatever ways I needed. I was set up with an apartment and a case manager to help with the transition. My foster mom treated my daughter as her own grandchild. They would tell me they all believed I could be, they told me all that they believed in me. And because of this continuous love and support, even when I pushed my foster mom away and tried sabotaging, she still stuck by me, and still to this day is part of my life. And now I'm married with 4 kids, and I wouldn't be able to be where I'm at now if I didn't have foster care and the proper placement and support. And I was given tools that I needed to succeed in my life and given a second chance. Thank you.
Kelly is so modest. She doesn't begin to tell you what she's accomplished. And I think one of the things she's most proud of is that she's been married for 15 years and has 4 children. And it's remarkable to see that kind of marriage follow on to such a difficult childhood. So I'm really proud of her. When Mark and I became foster parents years ago, we learned that children in foster care move from home to home and school to school, never belonging anywhere. We wanted to see that change, and by providing a long list of services to foster parents and the children, Help One Child's staff and volunteers have made fewer moves necessary. The fewer moves a child makes, the greater the hope. To make that happen, Help One Child has formed a network of churches and a large pool of volunteers to come alongside foster parents and the children to help them succeed. The highlight of each year for both the parents, who get a break, and the children is our annual camp for kids up in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Last year, because of the COVID virus, we had to have a virtual camp, which wasn't half as much fun as the real thing. But this year, 37 little masked bandits were able to come in person. In order to do this, we had to round up 45 volunteers to make sure that no child ran away and to make sure every child felt loved and cared for. Our Director of Family Connections, Judy Holmes, is going to tell you what happened at camp last week.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, thanks for being here. So as Joanne said, last week we had 37 excited, curious, and nervous campers who joined us. Some of them, it was their first time ever being away from home, and it's a 4-night camp, so it's pretty long. They were between the ages of 6 and 12, and they were wonderful. It was different this year because we normally have about 60 kids come to camp, and this year we only had 37, probably because of COVID. But it was nice. It was nice to get to know them on an more intimate level. At camp, they had full days. They went swimming. They had slip and slide time. They did archery, ropes course, zip lining, games on the field. Like, we kept them really busy so they would get to sleep really early and sleep really well. That really didn't happen, but that's okay. But most of all, they learned about God. Some of them have never even heard about God. And they learned how much God loved them. And it's evident that they were listening. I want to read you a few of their prayers. The night before camp, we give them a piece of paper and a pencil, and we have them write down their prayers to God and put it in a box. And so I just wanted to read a few to you guys. Dear God, I want good dreams. Dear God, please let Rocket live a long, healthy life. Please let me see my birth mom. Please, God, please. Dear God, I hope that you still love me after everything I've done. And I hope that I can help people when they're sad. Can you help me with that? Amen. Dear God, I feel like no one loves me, but you do, and I love you for that. God, I wish my parents get better, and I wish you were proud of me. I try my hardest every day, and I love you. Thank you for saving us. And last but not least, please let Bubbles still be alive when I get home. Amen. Every prayer matters. Thank you so much for being here.
Before Oliver continues with the second half of this amazing music, I want to ask you for a donation to help us replenish our camp fund. I had planned to tell you where to put that donation, but my husband says you already put it there, that you put it there coming in the front door. So I want to thank you for that. And if by chance you missed that opportunity, you can do it on the way out the front door, but we hope you will come join us after this second half of our program and have some treats and some water, and there'll be another opportunity with a basket over there. So if you're watching online, by the way, and we hope quite a few people are, we hope you're enjoying the program and you can donate online. Or if you're old like me, you can send a check to Help One Child at 858 University Avenue in Los Altos. Thank you so much for coming tonight. We really appreciate your being here.
Thank you for that. This next piece is by Charles Ives. It is the third movement of the Concord Sonata. He said of this sonata, "This is not a nice sonata for a nice piano player." I thought that was funny. I'll let you judge for yourself why he said that. It's named after the Alcotts. The third movement is a slow movement, and that's typical of third movements. This work was completed in 1915, and as you know, Louise May Alcott is the author of Little Women and Little Men and a few other books as well. And her husband, Bronson Alcott, was an American philosopher and teacher. They lived in the small town of Concord, Massachusetts, hence the title Concord Sonata. The other movements in this work are dedicated to other writers who also lived in that city. Ralph Waldo Emerson, Nathaniel Hawthorne, and Henry David Thoreau. It must have been quite a town. In Little Men, we hear that Joe, the character, brings in a foster child. And I will just quote this. In Little Men is primarily related through the eyes of Nat Blake, an orphan who comes into Joe's care in the first chapter of the book. Nat previously lived on the streets and played the fiddle to feed himself. When he arrives at Bloomfield, Nat has some behavioral problems that make him difficult to love. For example, he is a habitual liar, a quality he learned on the streets in order to survive, but which is inappropriate in civilized life. Instead of shaming him for his behavior, Joe approaches Nat with kindness and understanding, very much like how Help One Child seeks to do the same for their families. The simple quality of this beginning moves on to a motive that sounds like a reference to Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, so listen for that. It moves through different tonalities, finally landing on something a little more settled. Ives' harmonic structures are modern, and they carry with them this other world sense to it, not quite landing in any known key, giving music analysts plenty to debate over the years. There is a warm, loving E-flat section that feels grounded, and it moves upward towards something, again, a little more remote and tonally distant, otherworldly. Yet it still maintains a warm breadth to it, ending like a beautiful and grand ceremony that must come to a delicate end. It is written, quote, Ives paints a picture of Beth playing the Fifth Symphony at her piano and the old Scotch airs through juxtaposing the recognizable themes of Beethoven's Fifth and all of its grandeur and weightiness along the simplicity of the wee Scotch airs. The surprising and celestial bells that you will hear are the philosophical moments hinting at a world and existence beyond the one we see, end quote. Here is the third movement from the Concord Sonata, The Alcotts, by Charles Ives. Our last work tonight is Beethoven's brilliant and technically dazzling first movement of the Waldstein Sonata. It opens much like a Bach toccata would, with a main subject that begins with heroic energy, waiting to find freedom. This sonata was written during Beethoven's middle period career, and this piece was written 1 year before his famous Eroica Symphony No. 3. Beethoven never publicly performed his sonatas, but they became a standard for every aspiring pianist from Liszt and Schumann to today. Some of the surprises along the way include landing in more remote keys, from the C major to the bright E major with 4 sharps, and yet it's a sweet, slow church chorale-like melody. Then a variation on the theme is played, and it builds into more driving energy and rhythmic changes until it falls back into this percussive quick motion and tickles our ears until we find ourselves right back in the same key we started. The key of C is meant to be innocent and represent simplicity and have childlike, playful characteristics. The energy of this sonata movement may be childlike and playful, but Beethoven was playing games with the listener's ear. Because this movement is far from innocent and simple, it is full of clever devices to tease the ear and keep you guessing what's going to happen next. It plays hide and seek through a series of key cycles before finding its way back to the main theme, all the while demanding technical and dynamic precision from the performer. So sit back and be mesmerized by Beethoven's brilliant Waldstein Sonata, Movement 1. Thank you for coming, and we hope that you will stay around from some light refreshments in the fellowship hall here, where you can also congratulate Oliver for this successful debut and get his autograph. I mean, seriously. It's not every day that you see this level of maturity from a 15-year-old musician to be able to sustain the focus and the strength for a full-length, one-hour concert with this difficult level of music. So let's give him one more round of applause, Oliver Bjorkman. Help One Child, on behalf of Help One Child, I want to say thank you for your donations. Thank you for coming, and have a great evening.